I wanted to experiment, potentially even load test, but experiment with some inference microservices. So inference means like large language models, and microservices means putting those in a containerized environment. And so when I went to look at that, how could I do that? I have a NVIDIA GPU sitting in a PC, and I run Windows 11 on that, but I wanted to do this with all kind of Docker scripting kind of stuff. And so it turns out there's a Ubuntu instance, WSL virtual machine running there. And so I can talk to the containerized, Docker desktop containerized environment from there. And let's see what this does. How can I deploy, in this case, an NVIDIA inference microservice onto my local machines? And how do I know what's compatible? So let's hide that. Okay, so here's the Linux machine. Let's take a look at it real quick. So it turns out I can see my NVIDIA card from here, right? I have a 24 gig NVIDIA Titan RTX. It's an older card, Turing, 2 versions back. A lot of stuff still really runs on it really well. And it turns out some of the NVIDIA NIMs actually work on this also. So let's take a look real quick at Docker. Okay, so nothing's running here, which makes sense because if I had, we know nothing and the GPU's running. So real quick, what I want to do is I would like to know what NIMs, what already containerized microservices are out there that I can play with. And it turns out there's a list of those. Oops. You know what? You got to learn to type, man. Okay, so let's pull it up a little bit. All right, so it turns out I experimented with a whole bunch of these, and they're gigantic, so I burned a bunch of disk space on this. But it's cool, right? So in this case, a bunch of these, it turns out, don't run on my machine. So one of the questions is, how can we find out what runs on this machine? And so this is a Turing processor, which has FP16 on it, but it does not have bfloat 16. All right, so it has float 16, but not bfloat 16. All right, so let's try this. I'm going to pick this model, and it turns out the NVIDIA NIMs have this list model profiles, and they will tell you if that is compatible with the GPU, and you could do this in the cloud too. I'm just doing it locally because that way if I make a mistake, it doesn't cost me anything. All right, so that's already been downloaded, right? So that was one of those big models you saw before, and it turned out all of these models, and you can see that they have the wrong tensor cores and they've got other stuff. And this model just will not work with my system, right? Free GPUs, Titan RTX, nothing happening. So let's try, let's clear. So let's pick up one that does work. So in this case, I'm going to try a Llama 318 8B instruct and see what we got. We're going to pick up the latest. This is sweet, right? So it turns out there are a million profiles on here. But the one that works for me is TP1, and I think that's because I have tensor core, because this is 2 back, right? So I assume that's what TP stands for. I should find out. Anyway, I have found that TP1 only works on my machine, and I can use a lower model or just the regular one. So now the question is, how am I going to run that? Let's go over here. Same machine. And what one was this? This was the profile A5, right? Ends in AC5. So let's do this. And the one here is this one. So I'm going to run the Llama 318 8B instruct latest. And we're going to run this profile, and it turns out I know that I have a max model length on this. I'm going to run this Docker run script. If you run this run script without the max model, so I have to set the D type to half. That's actually I'm kind of convinced that's a mild bug, actually, that it should pick that up because the profile is compatible. If you don't do the half, you end up with bfloat 16, which I get as higher precision, but the model that I have works without that, so there shouldn't do that. But anyway, and we're going to pick a max model length here. You can remove this line, and it will fail, actually. We'll do that in a minute. Actually, you know what? I'll show you that real quick. So let's do, I'm going to write it out. We're going to go back to the other window. And what we're going to do is we're going to ls, and we're going to bash run Mistral. So the script name is wrong. I should have renamed it. It's basically going to run, so you can see here it's going to run llama 318b instruct, right? And let's make this a little wider. And you won't see it, but it doesn't matter. It just makes it look prettier. So it's actually loading this model, the Docker container, and blah, blah, blah. I can talk, blah, 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 blah. So you can see here we're catching, casting torch B float 16 to torch float 16. So that one actually works for us there. And we're down. And why are we down? And it turns out it's because the max model segment is larger, sequence length is larger than the tokens that we can store in memory, which is 45,000. I can't, so I'm just going to decrease the max model length. Okay, and I can, max model length will be, oh, you can't see this. Max model length will be 45,000. So let's go back here. Assuming I read the message right. And we'll delete this. X, oh man, dude. X. We'll write that out and we'll try and run it again. See if I read it right. Okay, so basically this is just kind of a deployment loop, right? I'm running this. I've already know that I have a valid profile. I know what the data type should be. It's actually doing the coercion correctly here, which is awesome. And although the way I put the comments back in, we're good. So it's going to start it up. Notice that the model is FP16, so I know this thing's good anyway. Any other coercion it's doing is like kind of a bit of nonsense in some ways. All right. So if we come back over here, we can see that this thing's actually up and running. And if we do an NVIDIA SMI, we can see that that actually took 22 gig out of this 24 gig card, because I'm not running any video on this card. I have a different video card, onboard video. So that's it. We're actually up. Well, I guess we're up, yeah. So, and I ran this in interactive mode so I could see the log. We can actually go and make a query against this and see it. So that's what I really wanted to show you, because that's all the time I got, is we were able to find an NVIDIA model, run the list model profiles to see if it'll run on my machine, run it with that, run that model that will run on this machine with the profile signature, right? That was this profile here, so I knew which profile I wanted that would be compatible. I set up a little bit of data typing and a little bit of max length, and I'm able to run that on my box, and I should be able to do a get call against that thing now. Is this thing still on? It is? Oh, let me try this real quick. You can verify that this container is up. There you go. Those are the models that, not sure why it did that. Oh, that's the curl progress, and that tells you that the llama 318B instruct's on there. Have a great day.